Today I'm going to be talking about the many works of Tatsuki Fujimoto. Now there's no mangaka recently that's blown up nearly as much as him, especially considering the fact that he's not a mainline battle shonen artist. I guess Chainsaw Man can be kind of interpreted that way, but it's not very similar to the likes of My Hero Academia, Black Clover. It's not within that same formula. But no more beating around the bush, I want to talk about his first work that got published in English, and that's Fire Punch. Now, the beginning of Fire Punch isn't that different from a lot of other manga you've probably read, especially based around revenge. The only thing that's that different is the fact that it's a post-apocalyptic world. But if you compare it to the likes of Vinland Saga, then it's kind of similar. He loses a family member, in his case, Fire Punch, it's his sister, not his father. Then after that, he sets out on a quest for revenge. And as far as the first couple arcs in the series, that's him chasing revenge. It's done in a weird way because it has a lot of other weird aspects to it. Tatsuki Fujimoto is one of the, I don't want to say quirkiest, but he has a weird sense of humor. Sometimes it can be a very dark sense of humor, and I do think that can be off-putting for a good amount of people. And outside of his newest one-shot, I do think Fire Punch is his weakest work. But really just at the beginning of the series, because eventually, especially during the second half of the manga, he does catch his footing. But the beginning has a lot of edginess to it. I think with the darker themes, they're not executed the best, to put it lightly. But luckily, towards the end, I think things get toned down a lot. There's a lot more focus put on our main character, Agni, and just other aspects and themes within the series. But reading this, or really any of Tatsuki Fujimoto's works, is whenever you're going to notice something about him that's not that common in a lot of other authors, and that's the way he does his art, and specifically his paneling. Because the way Fujimoto constructs the story, it's more artistic based and not really about exposition and needless dialogue. I don't want to say needless, but there's a lot of authors that use a lot of dialogue to really push their story forward, and that's not really the case with Fujimoto. When a character is feeling some sort of emotion or change in emotion, Fujimoto puts in a lot of effort, more than most, in showcasing this emotion artistically, and the progression in these emotions is displayed through the paneling. There's a lot of facial details which makes showing something like this even possible. Up next, we have my favorite of all of his one-shots, and that's Goodbye Eri. Now this manga is all about our main character Yuta, who gets a smartphone for his birthday. And at first, his mother is the one who asks him to film her death, just kind of capturing everything he could about her. That way, even when she's gone, she can still be remembered. And then something similar happens with his best friend as well, so he ends up filming the deaths of two people that are super close to him, that being his mother and his best friend. Now, of course, given that this is story, there's a lot of themes that kind of tie in with this. There's the whole perception versus reality with filmmaking, and that's how these guys that make these films can kind of change the perception on an entire person just based on what they made. Because that's kind of a twist that ends up happening, is that the mother wasn't exactly Mother of the Year despite the way the film made it look. And the same thing's kind of true for his best friend Eri. People that knew her said she wasn't exactly the best person either. Now, something that gets explained about Fujimoto's style is actually shown in Goodbye Eri, and that's just overall kind of simple concepts with over-the-top execution. The film he made about his mother ended with an explosion when she died in the hospital. And the same thing can be applied to really any of his stories. Fire Punch, if you break it down, like I said, it's a post-apocalyptic revenge story, but the execution in all of the concepts within this manga are so over the top. Chainsaw Man and Look Back aren't any different. Of course, they're not post-apocalyptic, but they have these twists. And that just brings me back to one of the panels in Goodbye Eri, where she says, "You see, I'd finally figured it out. The reason I'd recut that film so many times. It's missing a pinch of fantasy, don't you think?" And then right after this, the building explodes. Now, a slight step down is Look Back, a manga about making manga and friendship. So I would say if you're actually interested in the manga industry, this would be a kind of good read. And then if you like wholesome stories, give this a shot as well. Because like I said, Tatsuki Fujimoto likes to throw in a twist. And the twist here is that one of them gets murdered. So it doesn't exactly work the best as a super wholesome story. The two creators within the manga in the story are Fujino and Kyomoto. The two have a falling out, and then one day Fujino receives the news that Kyomoto was a casualty in a mass murder. And then we see her experiencing her regret over all decisions that she's made up until now, and then we see Fujino kind of place herself in the past, and this is whenever she actually manages to save Kyomoto from the mass murderer. This is one of the best examples that I can think of for the whole simple concept with a very over-the-top execution. But even more than all of that, I think this is one of the best examples of Fujimoto's character writing. Now, I don't really think any of Fujimoto's characters follow traditional character arcs where it's either positive or negative. His characters, they're constantly going positive or negative. They switch back and forth consistently. To make kind of an easy comparison towards their contemporaries, Denji and Agni don't really hold a traditional positive character archetype that's seen in so many battle shonen protagonists. People like Naruto, Luffy, Ichigo, where it's a very positive character slope. And they also don't follow characters like Lelouch, Eren, and Rock from Black Lagoon, where it is a negative character slope. They're constantly up and down. It's more like a roller coaster than anything else. And the same thing exists within Look Back. Fujino constantly goes up and down. I wouldn't really say the same about Kyomoto, given that she's just not that type of character. But Fujino, just in terms of character arc, is just like Denji and Agni. She has times where her life is going really well and she's being a great person, and then there's times when things kind of drop off and then she becomes a worse person in the process. And lastly, I have Chainsaw Man. Super excited for part 2, but let's go ahead and talk about what happened in part 1. Now, at the very beginning of the story, we see Denji working as a devil hunter in order to pay off his debt. I mean, to say that Denji was broke at this point in the story would be a complete understatement. He's so poor that eating a slice of bread a day is a good day to him. But the debt collectors within the Yakuza wanted to be more powerful, so they end up betraying Denji because the devil they wanted the power from hated devil hunters. So they ended up killing Denji, but in the process, of course, given that he is the protagonist, Denji could not just die. So he ended up combining with the devil that he was using to devil hunt, becoming Chainsaw Man. And this is without a doubt his best work to me. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Goodbye Eri, it's a close second. Look Back, Fire Punch, they're all not far behind. But I think throughout all the things, the aspects of storytelling that I've listed so far, Chainsaw Man is at the top in every single category. The art and paneling is without a doubt the best here. I mean, if I was going to include spoilers, I have so many examples I could show that I'm just not going to. But I can make small hints that wouldn't mean anything to anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about already. Birthday Cake, Snowball Fight, two great examples of what I'm talking about. Simple concepts with over-the-top execution. Now, like I said, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, so it's really hard to give examples for this. But the beginning of this manga is sort of like really a lot of other manga. Jujutsu Kaisen is kind of very similar in terms of concept. Denji, Eren, Itadori, they're all put in the same situation to where they have only one decision, or I guess two decisions. They can either die or join the group that's basically putting them in this situation to make the decision in the first place. Itadori, Eren, and Denji are all given basically the same options. They can either die or join the organization. And then lastly, the character work. It's the best here. Not gonna say any spoilers, but once again, Snowball Fight and Birthday Cake. Oh, and then there was Just Listen to the Song, which was good. It's not even the length of an average chapter, so it's a very short one-shot. I just don't think that a lot of the elements that exist within Tatsuki Fujimoto's style were really all that present here. Don't get me wrong, I still liked it. It definitely had something to say in those very short, I think it was 14 pages. I double checked, it was 18 pages, so I was a little bit off there, so a little bit less than the average chapter. I really liked in this one shot how there was this whole dynamic with the audience and the creator about what the meaning behind the actual song was. Many people that were looking into it were just looking way too deep and finding stuff that wasn't even there. I think Ava fans should really check out this one shot, but overall it was just a fun read. I liked it. I just don't think it really compares to, I'd say, any of the other stories here. But with all that being said, check out my social medias. I have a Twitter. I use it sometimes. Check out the Annie lists. I have 2 of them to find out what I actually like and don't like. And then I'm pretty sure that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out.